y'all just work with me because I make sure because I want everybody to see everything today. I don't want no ifs, ands, or buts. So I'm making sure we're getting we should be there we go. Live on YouTube, live on Twitch, live on YouTube, and live on Facebook. We're right here bringing it to you at 4 different platforms. So if you did not see this, it's also being recorded. Bam. There we go. All right. Now we got that out of the way. Let me let me turn that down, turn this up. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning. How you doing, Ron?
It's been an exciting morning. I've been stepping on toes this morning like I normally do.
Yeah, I
You know,
see.
but they're lucky because
But
I didn't wear steel toe boots this time around. It was just my regular sneakers. I was being nice with them. But I said something and somebody came back at me real foul. So I came back at them. What's those saying? Isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? you know,
interesting.
yeah, it's just, I
Interesting.
get riled up on a Monday morning and I had to tone it down because I knew Martha's going to be on and she'll put me in my place. Say, Ron, breathe in, breathe
I know.
out, wax on, wax off. But sometimes when people say something to you, you can't let them keep on saying stupid stuff. You know,
Sometimes you just have to ignore them, right?
yeah, or as Martha would say, Corey, that's Chicago coming out.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
All right, good morning.
So Ron, Corey, I just want to introduce you to Ronald Gordon. He is the owner and CEO of WSAN Radio. His goal is to be the voice of the voiceless, basically taking some, small business. He's definitely instrumental in bringing small businesses on and just illuminating them. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Illuminating so we can let the world see who's out there, who's doing what. And I chose this opportunity when he approached me with, hey, why don't you have your own show? So so I'm his recruiter for great talent.
Gotcha.
And so what I do is I look for small, businesses that are doing, you know, just passionate about what they do, and just
Right.
it's your time to shine. It's not my show is to illuminate you. And so that's what I'll be doing today. So I want to introduce you to Ron. Ron, I definitely want to introduce you to Corey. He is a business consultant, entrepreneur, and I met him through my nephew. My nephew, it felt like if he's dealing with Corey gotta have some good character and gotta be doing
Yeah.
business in a professional way, because I really this is a nephew that I do respect. Robert Jones, I really respect him, and so when he introduced me to Corey, it was life changing, to be honest with you. And I refer clients to him because I know he's going to do you well. So we're going to find out exactly what he do in a minute.
Okay.
So before I start, Corey, tell us what you do.
Sure. And Ron, it's nice to meet you. Thank you guys for having me. So I am a business consultant. I work with both entrepreneurs who are starting for-profit businesses, as well as nonprofit founders who are looking to launch their own nonprofit. So for my for-profit clients, I specialize in business formation. So regardless of which of the 50 states you operate in, I can help get your business formed. We like to do it the right way from the very beginning. So we help you navigate those processes as far as the process, the documentation, everything to get you structured correctly. Beyond the formation point, we do business plans. So a lot of people who are seeking funding from banks and financial institutions, a lot of these banks will require that you submit a business plan amongst other documentation. So we can help you create the strategy for growth, but also help you build the business plan out as well. Other than that, we can help people get various business certifications, like minority-owned business certification, women-owned business certifications, depending on what state you're in. On the nonprofit side, we do just about everything except grant writing and fundraising. But we help form nonprofits. We can help you like pick the board of directors. We can help train the board of directors of how to effectively run the nonprofit. Help you even facilitate the board meetings for the first couple of board meetings until the nonprofit board of directors is functioning correctly. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
a little bit about my services. As you can see, I like processes and documentation. The reason why that has served as well in business is because a lot of the people that I help, they are experts at their craft, but they don't care about all of this other stuff that you got to do to make the business run smooth, like all this documents, the formation, the QuickBooks account. They don't care about all of that. There's a mechanic that I helped the other day, and he was like, Mr. Jack, I know the inside of a car like a doctor knows the human anatomy. However, all of this other stuff, all this documents and all that, I can't stand this stuff. So, it's a good marriage to be able to combine what we do with a lot of business owners, how we're able to help them.
And I agree because I don't care about all of that, but I would definitely help you with your life. I don't care about that. What made you choose this profession?
Sure. Man, I think you almost have to go back to my childhood. So I live in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I have a physical office in Lafayette, Louisiana, and New Orleans, Louisiana. However, I help people around the country. But I'm originally from a very small town in Louisiana, north of where I live now. When I say small, we have about 3,000 people there. There was just not a lot of resources there. There were no boys and girls clubs, no big brothers, big sisters, no United Way. There was none of that stuff. So I always felt as though I had something creative in me and that I could just impact people. I just had that since I was a kid. I think it was my grandmother that put that in me because she used to watch me and babysit me in the summer when my mom was at work because I was raised by a single mother with a lot of help from my grandmother. And she always seen something in me, but I just didn't know what that was. But as I grew older, I just took a liking to business, even in high school. But the high school I attended did not offer business courses or entrepreneurship. It just wasn't that type of school. So I had to start researching this on my own. I had a fascination with both psychology and business. I don't know what it was about those two topics, but my high school didn't offer either of those things. So when I graduated from high school and I went to college, University of Louisiana at Lafayette, I actually got my undergrad in psychology, but continued to study business. And then after I graduated from my undergrad in psychology, I went and got a master's in business administration. So I knew I wanted to own a business. I didn't know why at the time. So because I didn't know what to sell or what product or service to sell, I decided to start a nonprofit first because I knew I wanted to give back to youth, especially youth in underserved communities. And I didn't know where that comes from, but now I know because the people I helped sort of mirrored my own upbringing, the lack of resources and stuff like that. And that I wish I had, the mentors that I wish I had. I wanted to give that, even though I still had a yearning for it myself. So I created a nonprofit first. I just got my MBA, and I didn't know what I was doing at first. So I submitted the documentation to the state because they don't teach you that when you're in school for it. They don't teach you the basics. So I submitted the paperwork to the state. They sent me a document back saying that it was approved. I was like, that was easy enough. Got the EIN number. IRS said, okay, that was approved. That was very easy. Then I submitted for the 501c3 status. And I was like, there's no way they're going to. I went to talk to the CPA and see if they could help me, but they spoke a lot of language I wasn't understanding. So I was like, I'm going to do it myself. I taught myself how to do it. I sent the 501c3 application to the IRS. They sent me the approval back. I'm like, well, I'll be. Then I wrote my first grant. They approved it and they sent the check in the mail. And I was puzzled. I'm like, why y'all send me money? I didn't know what I was doing. One thing about me is I like to document processes, even if it's the first time I'm doing something. And this was back in 2014. So I document each step that I did throughout the process. And then my nonprofit, which caters towards teaching youth in underserved communities, started to thrive. So people started coming to me, asking me, how did I start the nonprofit? So I used those documented steps and I started helping them. And one by one by one, and before you knew it, I helped 10 people, and I helped 20, then 30, and it kept growing. And I'm like, that's the business, a consulting company. So that's when I formed the LLC to help people start nonprofits and other business entities because I understood the process. So that 5 to 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10 months that people like spend on YouTube and Google to try to figure this stuff out, I can outline it for you in a 30-minute phone call.
Ooh.
So that was the business. That was the birth of the business. So
Wow.
started here in Lafayette, Louisiana. Now I do for people across the country. But it started in my apartment at the time and in coffee shops. And now I've met certain people that introduce me to people on a national scale. But something so small now generate the income for myself. I'm a business owner now, just learning to do something and doing it well.
Wow. That's awesome. Like, that's awesome to know you got a gift in you and you go out and you just do it. When you were out doing it, did you ever have any doubt?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And how did you conquer it?
oh man. Well, I like talking about this. So one of the things I like to study is imposter syndrome. I study it very well. So I know where that term come from. I know the studies that have been done on it. I know why people have imposter syndrome. I know both the external and systemic factors that contribute to it, as well as the internal barriers imposed on ourselves that contribute to it. So I think my background in psychology, it helps me get past that. But I think the reason why I've overcome it, a large part is spiritual, because I'm a big believer that, who am I? Why would I question a gift that my creator put in me? Like, he put it in me. Who am I to question it? I heard a speaker say one time, what happened if you put a lot of thought into a gift that you purchased for your significant other, and you put it in a box, wrapped it in a bow, and you come home and you bring it to them, and they say, "Oh, just put it on the counter. I'll get to it later," and then they never open it. And you think about all the thought that you put into it. Why would you not open it and not put all this? I know what's in it. I know you'll enjoy it, but you just never open it. I was like, let me find out that that's what I'm doing to God. Let me find out that I'm scared to do something that I know that he put something in me to do. And so at that point, I'm like, wait a minute. This generates income and sustains my lifestyle, but I feel like I'm supposed to do this because it comes easily to me. So because it comes easily to me and it provides a sense of fulfillment from it, I'm able to impact people's lives in this manner. This might be my ministry. So let me not be derelict of duty and not do this because I'm scared. So that provides a motivation for me to sort of get over any fear that I had. Number one. Number two, I realized that there's other people that do what I do. Like, you can get these services from other places, but I realized that I had a gift in like making people understand the processes, making them feel comfortable taking that leap of faith, because for many, entrepreneurship is a leap of faith. But there's something about my personality and in my delivery that makes them comfortable and motivates them that you may not get from other places. So I learned how to lean into my certain skill set, demeanor, gifts, and that's kind of like the difference, the competitive advantage.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy that you use, because that is so true. The gift. I love it. I love it. I love it. How old were you when you started?
It was probably, well, when I launched my own business, it's about 28.
Okay.
28. What's unique about it, though, it's hard for me to pinpoint a starting date because everything flowed into each other. So I've had W-2 jobs, like I've worked for other companies. While I was in school, getting a degree in psychology and a master's in business administration, I worked for Circuit City selling TVs, worked for Best Buy selling TVs, worked for AT&T selling cell phones. So I was learning customer service. I was learning various things while working for them. And then after AT&T, I worked as an outside sales representative for a credit card processing company, which had me travel throughout the entire state of Louisiana. I hated that job. It required me to be aggressive, to do cold calls, and I don't like that. That's not my personality. But I had to learn how to walk into a place of business to someone who did not know I was coming, try to get past the gatekeeper and talk to the business owner, and in doing to try to sell them a credit card machine. But in doing that, I started seeing the pain points of business owners and entrepreneurs, the things they struggled with. So, and I had to learn how to build up the confidence to try to position a product to someone who's already busy doing their own thing. Even though I hated the job, I wouldn't be able to do Jack and Associates, my business successfully, had I not had those experiences. And although I didn't care much for AT&T, the customer service I had to learn, I would not have that ability to make someone feel comfortable and to connect had I not had that job. So although I went on my own in 2018, this has been in the making, even when I was working for other people, because the skill was being refined. But nonetheless, when I went on my own, it was 2018. I was working for a chamber of commerce. They had me build a small business support program. And whenever I decided to leave that job, they were like, we can't lose what you built. Can you contract us out to provide it? So my employer became my first major customer.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That is amazing. I love how you transition like that, because that's so real in today's world. That's so real. And I must say, I have witnessed your customer service, and you really do have that personality that make you say, go for it.
Right.
You know, you don't say it, but the way your service is, the way you provide your service, I felt confident in moving forward, excited about moving forward. I felt empowered through your services, because you love how that 30-minute call is like, that was the best 30 minutes in my business.
Right.
Because it provided not just motivation, but information.
Right.
Information that people charging thousands and thousands of dollars for. And you service everyone the same way.
Right.
And everybody who I've sent you to they really gave good reviews on how you service them. And so I really like that part. Ryan, you look like you have a question before I move forward.
You must know me pretty good. You must know me pretty good. Well, she's good at that. And one thing I want to it's your demeanor, it's your personality that people they feel comfortable with you, and they know when you talk to them, you're not putting out BS. You could back it up, and people could see through that. And I sort of feel like you, because I sit there and talk to people, and if you know your stuff, you don't have to lie all the time. You got to cover another lie with another lie. But one thing that really stuck out to me was customer service. That is a thing, because I work with multiple cable companies and laundromats, and the number one thing with customer service, even though if the customer is wrong, you talk to them and make them feel like they're right, even though they're wrong. But you said customer service will drive a business or kill a business. I just want to say you touched that point that everybody need to listen to is customer service. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's your onboarding process, right? With the fact that you do a lot of you say you document your processes. You must have a process improvement background. Like, do you have a green belt, black belt? You had to delve into that. You got the language.
Right. So none of those particularly. I think with the customer service portion of it is that what helps is the psychology background definitely helps, because I tell people psychology is my first love. Business came afterwards. I always had a fascination with psychology. But also that job at AT&T, like the customer service was built into the compensation model. So those customer satisfaction surveys, you had to score a certain number on there to get paid for that portion of your commission. So I learned it from there, but I think what I'm strong at is I'm able to lean into my personality in my business. The way I am with customers, that's how I am with people. Right? That's my demeanor with people in general. And this is a reflection of the way my grandmother and my mom raised me. That's why whenever I'm recognized for something, I always make sure my mom is there. This is just the man she raised.
That's awesome.
You be respectful, like, and integrity is major. I'm
Yes.
the second I have to screw over a person to make a sale, like I'm done with it. It's not worth it. That's why I've left some jobs, because it was become profit over people, and I'm not selling somebody something that they don't need for a bigger check. If that's the case, I can go do other stuff for money, right? So it's the integrity, and it's just loving people. Do I always like people in general? I can't say that. But do I have a genuine love for people? Yes. That's just the way I was raised. The way I was raised, and I think that's reflected in like business practices.
So with nonprofit, building, formation of a nonprofit, they have so many different. 501(c) is not the only one, right? How would a person determine which route to take?
So there's several. Those all the way up to like 501(c) 20 something. So all the way from 1 to 20 something. The most common is the C3, because you can get charitable contributions from there. So if you're the most common ones by far is the C3. The next most common is probably going to be the C6, and then you'll start seeing C4s, and then it kind of goes from there. But if you're doing like a public good for the community, something charitable, you're probably going to be a C3, because the impact that you're making is on the general population. And then, of course, people who donate to you can get those charitable tax deductions. You can get grants and things like that. So if the community at large is the person that you want to benefit, you're probably looking at a C3. A C6 is if you're looking to benefit the business environment and the business climate. So that's why you see chambers of commerces or C6s. So they do activity that should be exempt from taxes. However, the main benefit is other businesses in a particular geographic region. So if you're looking to benefit other businesses, you're looking at C6. Also, if you have a nonprofit that you want to be able to influence legislation and support certain political candidates with still the goal of benefiting certain people in general, then you're looking at maybe a C4 and things like that. So it depends. It's going to determine who you're looking to benefit and the methods by which you go about doing that. So.
Oh, okay. So a radio station, for instance, which way would they go? What would be the best route for a radio station to take?
Sure. So you're probably going to look at C3, unless you're going to be looking to, unless there's some type of political aspect to what it is that you're doing. Then if that would be the case, then you'd be looking at something else. However, if you're looking to benefit a group of people and the radio station is the method by which you're helping people that need it, then you're probably looking at a C3. You see, a lot of people will do this business model, and this is the one I do, where you have a for-profit entity and you have a nonprofit entity that works together. So they can benefit each other. They just have to do it in the right way. The business can benefit the nonprofit all that it wants to, with little limitation. However, whenever it's in reverse, that's whenever you have to be careful and make sure that everything's done correctly. Some people, they do something, like for me, it's consulting, it's entrepreneurship, it's financial literacy. So I charge people who can afford and have the means to pay me. However, it's a gift that I have, so I still want to help people that may not have that means. I'm able to do that through the nonprofit. Somebody's still paying for it, it's just not the person receiving the help. So it's still benefiting the community. So same thing with the radio station. If there's a for-profit component of it, what you're doing, but then if you're trying to help, a group of people in a certain way to where they may not be able to pay for that, then the nonprofit allows you to use other people's money to still fulfill that mission. So you don't have to do one or the other. You can do both. You just got to have the structure in place and the memorandum of understanding between the two entities to make sure everything remains on the up and up.
So when you say you got to be careful with the reverse, so you got to be careful utilizing taking money from a nonprofit to pay for your LLC.
So yes, I'm being politically correct. Whenever I say the reverse, I'm talking about money. I'm talking about
Right.
like money going from one
Right.
entity to the next. Because most people who utilize this structure, they're driving both entities. So they're in charge of the for-profit entity. They make money on the for-profit entity, but they're also the founder of the nonprofit. And you can get paid from both. It just has to be set up correctly. The money from the nonprofit can't just find itself into your LLC. Can't work like that. But there's all sorts of things you can do to do it the correct way. Like for instance, if you're on a nonprofit, you don't have to be on the board. You can elect other board members. You can be the executive director, which is a paid position for the nonprofit. You just relinquish control to the board of directors. They set your salary. You can get paid all you want. So you see what I'm saying? You can still benefit from it. But a lot of times people who start nonprofits are very uncomfortable not being on the board. So if you're on the board, you can still get paid, but it's different. You have to enter into a professional services contract. You have to do all sorts of other stuff to make sure everything stays on the up and up. There's actually less of that if you become an employee of the nonprofit you founded rather than the head of the board of the nonprofit you founded. All to say, it can be done. It does not hurt to have a good CPA that understands nonprofit finances and a business attorney that you can consult from time to time. I often tell people, if you have those two things, you'd be amazed at what you can do.
Oh, wow. So if you are an employee, like an executive director, but you have the board over you, and you kind of the founder of the nonprofit, but the nonprofit technically don't belong to anybody,
There
right?
you go. So a nonprofit does not have an owner. No one owns a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit. It has a founder, yes, but you don't own a nonprofit. So like, if you founded a nonprofit and like, let's say you're going to buy a house or something like that, you can't use the nonprofit's finances as like saying, look, no, that's not your money, and you don't own it. The community at large owns it. The board of directors governs it. So what the board of directors say goes, they govern it, but no one person owns it.
Wow.
So, but you see, we create nonprofits. We're like, this is my nonprofit. We get it. It's your baby. It's your passion project. It's not your possession. That's not what the government intended it for. They're allowing you to have tax-free dollars in there, not for you to just have, and it's for you to go and fulfill a mission. So you're the founder, but you're supposed to be assembling a team to go fulfill that mission, and you're being fairly compensated for your work in it. So when you look at it like that, so my nonprofit operates, it's become statewide recently, so that has been a blessing. But for the most part, it has been just regional within the state. I'm not even on the board, but people know it's me. Then my face is all over it, but I'm not on the board. If you want to speak to a board member, I will refer you to Jonathan Noel, Jacoby Sarah, Bianca Cook, or Tina Shelvin. Those are the board members. I'm the CEO. I formed it from scratch, but I don't need to be on the board. I don't need to be on the board. So I'm an employee of it. Now, like I said, there's still a way for me to get paid and be on the board, but I want to consult, make sure that's done right, and then I would be compensated for a limited work that I'm doing. Whereas my role now, I'm an employee, so I do like all of this stuff and everything, and I'm compensated for it like an employee would be. But I don't have to be on the board. I don't have to be on the board. I have good board members, and they're not going to overthrow me. They're not going to.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you own, you got to, so you trust these individuals and build the relationship with them so that so you won't have to go through that.
Right. Which this brings an interesting dynamic, because you see, like if you serve on nonprofit boards, like bigger, like I'm on the board of a community college here. I'm on the board of a statewide chamber. I'm on the board of the Goodwill out here. These are big nonprofits. They're no one's passion project. These are big nonprofits that have been here before I got here, and they'll be here long before I'm gone. We're not friends, and we're not family members, right? They hold us strategically for our skill set and our expertise. So we make decisions objectively without worrying about offending someone, because whoever created Goodwill out here is not still here. That's been a decade old organization, decades old. So I have to worry about offending a friend who asked me to be on the board or a sister that asked me to be on the board. Those are sort of how nonprofits are supposed to be ran, to where you can objectively give your opinion and cast a vote without worrying about offending the founder. That's sort of like how they're structured in bigger nonprofits. But whenever we form nonprofits, oftentimes we pull family members and friends. So they tend to not challenge us anyway. And we don't want to be challenged because it's our passion project. When you see, so that's an interesting dynamic there, because a lot of people I don't help form nonprofits for big institutions. No, it's everyday people like us looking to form it, but their sister is on a board, their cousin. Sometimes every board member listed all have the same address because it's the same household. So because people do that, number one, they trust these people and they'll never be overthrown. So I kind of did a mixture of that, but I won't. Everything's ran on the up and up. I shouldn't be overthrown for anything, but it operates more so like the bigger nonprofits. Another reason why it's good to diversify your board is because there might be times where you need to go ask for funding. Unless your circle, your intimate circle, have those connections, a lot of times you ask for funding, people go look up to see who's on the board. And if they don't see names they recognize, sometimes it's hard to compete for certain pots of money. Also, too, it's good to have different expertise on your board, because if you have someone who is like a CPA or good with finances, they're probably going to be the treasurer. You won't have to go and outsource that to a CPA firm if you already have one on your board. Or if it's an organization that deals with mental health, it might be good to have like a mental health counselor on your board. So being strategic about who's on the board. But,
so when they move from the board, because the board members, are they volunteers or do you pay them?
So they're volunteers. Now, there are certain models in which for that you want to talk to a CPA and an attorney. There's some, okay. Yeah, you want to talk to, for the most, it's a volunteer position.
And so when you transition them from the board to, like, you may say, I'll use this CPA as a treasurer, and you transfer them out, you get another board member to fill that spot, or do you just transition them out?
So the officer positions, the treasurer, the secretary, and the president, they are also board members. They're just board officers. They have extra responsibility than that of just a board member.
Oh, they board officers, okay.
Board officers. Now, versus at the staff level, you would have like a chief administrative officer, a CFO or whatever. But on the board level, that's a treasurer or whatever. But most of these nonprofits we're talking about, they're not big enough yet to have those specialized positions under staff. And just to let you know too, so there's a way board members can be paid, but that's when I say consult someone first.
Right.
I'm actually on 2 boards that actually pay me for work that I do. So my regional economic development organization here in Lafayette that covers 8 parishes, I'm on their board, but they also contract with Jack and Associates to do a specific program within that organization. I'm also on a statewide board that also contracts with Jack and Associates. It can be done, but the program that I facilitate in that organization is very minute compared to the totality of all that they offer. So it can be done, but that's not something I recommend you go at it if you just do it by yourself. You need to consult the proper people to make sure it's set up. The safest way to do it is just to not be on the board, but there's a way you can be. It just has to be done a certain way.
Yeah, because they're actually hiring you for a different service.
Versus if I was running the entire organization, if that's the case, you need to be staff. I'm just doing a very small portion of that work. I'm specialized in it.
That makes a lot of sense. Ron, you got any questions before I move on? Because you look like you might be ready for some more questions with somebody calling in. Or no.
No, I'm just you answered. See, Martha be in my head, and that's not fair. But I was asked the same question because I do have a nonprofit and my profit business, and the question was already answered. And see, she's good. But the main thing that I was saying, my board is together, and my biggest fear is, which I'm like you, their family, I doubt that. But if all that nonprofit is in your name in the beginning. You're the one that went through IRS and it's in your name. So let's say there's a coup and they plan to get rid of you. Do you relinquish all that to them, or can you say this is my nonprofit? You cut it with the IRS. They got to start all over. How do you go about that?
Right. So, man, that's
That's
a
a
good
good
question.
question.
So, there's a couple of things. So, the bylaws. So, every nonprofit should have bylaws, right? So, the bylaws outlines the voting and all that type of stuff. To where if the bylaws state that the removal of a person, this is what you got to follow. If they can meet that criteria and vote you out, then they can. Now, some people who form a nonprofit go the extra length to add some protections in those bylaws to make it difficult for the founder to be removed. You can. So remember I told you, if you have a good CPA and a good attorney, that's where the attorney comes in, because the attorney can put some stuff in there to make that more difficult to happen. But so the whole thing about the nonprofit is ultimately it's supposed to grow to a point to where the board members can hire somebody to then operate and things like that. That person that they would hire would, at that point, supposed to be able to have access to like some of the documents and stuff that you or that you're alluding to. But also the nonprofit is supposed to have a succession plan to where it can outlive any one particular person. So that's like best practices. So where all the stuff that you set up, it's supposed to be structured in such a way to where upon your departure, voluntarily or involuntarily, somebody can pick that up and run with it. So if that doesn't happen, I mean, there was no succession planning in place. So I'm going to be honest with you. There's a nonprofit that I was a part of that I wasn't the founder, but nonetheless, I did everything for it. And I left because the contract was up, but there was no succession planning going. I left this organization 18 months ago. They still call me for stuff because they don't know where anything is. They don't know where documents is, relationships that I had with vendors. I'm almost 2 years removed from it, but it still can't function with my direct departure because we didn't have anything in place to make sure the next man up can operate it fully. So, and as far as registering, like the IRS and things like that, getting the EIN and stuff like that is usually with nonprofits, you're just like the authorized representative at that time because the IRS understands that there's no owners here. So as long as a authorized person of the organization currently calls and get information from them, they can, if they can prove that they're a board member. Unlike if it was an LLC, well, then no other person can call and not get information because it's yours. The nonprofit isn't yours. You're just like an authorized person of it.
Okay.
Okay, that was succession planning is important.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I also, one thing before we move on, for those listening who are interested in nonprofits, I just want to say this because that's a big misconception. Like, you don't have to be afraid to like pay yourself if you have a nonprofit. The word nonprofit just means that an individual don't benefit from the profit of the organization. The profit gets reinvested back into the community and the organization. When you pay yourself, you are an expense of the organization. So profit is what's left after expenses. You get paid, you're just an expense because you're getting paid on a contract or a salary. So you still making money. It's just that your pay doesn't fluctuate with the profits because that's for-profit behavior. That's called nonlinear compensation. The IRS don't like to see that. If the nonprofit make more money this month, you made more money this month. No, you get paid steadily. You can get raises, but you get paid. You're an expense. You just don't get the profit. That's what the nonprofit part is alluding to. But you can still get paid. You're an expense. You're not the owner. The owner takes off the profit. You're a contractor or a salaried worker. You're an expense. That's
so you either coming in as a W-2 or 1099. Okay. That's succession planning. I'm stuck on that because that's big. Because you're right. You do have to have processes in place for you to move forward. And that's a big, huge thing because if you don't have that, you're right. How can you move forward? But most people who build these nonprofits, my question to you is, how do you approach an attorney? This is a volunteer to be on your chair? What's the best way to approach an attorney? Because to get them to volunteer for your nonprofit.
Got you. I would say, and it's not always the easiest thing to do, but finding one who has a passion for the type of work that you're doing, that's probably going to be the best way. Some people even would take this method of, even if like the attorney or whatever profession it is, if they're like too busy to be on a board of a nonprofit, getting someone from that firm might still, someone else from that firm that works for that person maybe, or maybe someone who's a paralegal, because a paralegal has a little bit more legal knowledge than everybody else because they follow on around. So even, they may not be an attorney, but if some legal question arise, they might be like, no, you know what? We see this sometimes. I can ask so-and-so, but this is the area of concern. They'll have enough information. So even if you can't grab someone with more information about that would be sufficient.
So attorney would be good to have on your board, and a CPA, getting a CPA that's passionate.
Right. Now, and it just depends on your level of expertise, because like I'm not a CPA. However, I understand the basics of bookkeeping very well. I don't offer bookkeeping as a service. That's just not my thing, but I understand it very well. Whether you have a nonprofit or a business, if you have a QuickBooks account and you understand how to manage your transactions, you would be amazed at how much of a firm grasp you would have of your organization's finances. Because then consulting a CPA just needs to be done maybe on a quarterly basis. Instead of having them in the mix every month and paying for those services, if you can manage those QuickBooks, or even if you go to a CPA and you have them set up QuickBooks and teach them how to train you, that could be done in an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then a lot of times you won't necessarily need them on a month-to-month basis. When it's tax time, you share access to the QuickBooks account and they can do your taxes from there. So if you have someone that's just familiar with QuickBooks that can serve as a treasurer role, you may not necessarily need the CPA. But if no one's familiar with it at all, then you might want to go ahead and grab those expertise on your board.
That's good to know, because you're right. You don't need them all the time. You just need to be consulted with sometimes.
Right.
Wow.
You see, I have relationships with both CPAs and attorneys where, like, there's legal. That's what my business, Jack and Associates, is good about, because I am not an attorney. I am not a CPA. I work very closely with these people to where I am a good starting point, to where by the time you go meet with the attorney, you know what questions to ask. We're going to have a list of questions for you to go ask that attorney, or a list of questions to go ask the CPA, because in this area, the going rate for the CPA now is $200 an hour for the consultation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Attorney, some of it's the same way. So the key is making the most out of that hour. You meet with me, we have a sheet of questions. You will get all your questions answered in an hour. That way you don't go sit with them and be like, oh, let me look at my notes. I did have something I forgot. That's taken up like 10, 15 minutes. We got to be efficient with this.
Right.
Some of these questions, I know what they're going to tell you. Like some questions I get asked often from folks is, should my LLC, should it be an S Corp? Still go talk to a CPA. But let me break down the basic components of what they're about to talk to you about. That way you can ask the right questions whenever you're meeting with them. Yeah.
High level.
Yes.
What does your business formation look like?
Formation process. So
Yes.
we just do it all. So whenever you're forming a business, three major, just the actual formation process, 3 steps: state registration, getting the EIN number, which is simple, very simple. And then third, the operating agreement. Most people with businesses don't have operating agreements, and you should. So taking care of those 3 things. Now, of those 3 steps, the EIN is very, very easy. It's just on a few minutes. But the business formation process, depending on what state you're in, it's easier in some states than others. We just know how to do it in all 50 states.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is something that you could do it yourself. If you research it and stuff like that, you can do it yourself. This, just like anything else, is you're paying for convenience. Inconvenience. If we do it for you, you'll have it, and sometimes even the next day. Certain states have different processing times, but you'll have it within a day or 2. Versus, you can do it yourself. You just make sure you Google the information you need and stuff like that. And some people get tripped up on the terminology as well. So if you form your own LLC, the good thing about it is if you make a mistake, it's correctable. It's just as costly because a lot of states charge to make corrections and it prolongs the process. So,
Right. What about high level? What about tips on succession planning?
mm-hmm. Well, and that looks different whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit. If it's a nonprofit, succession planning first begins with operating in such a way to where you realize that you have a team. Some people form a nonprofit and it's really just an LLC in disguise. They just have the nonprofit to try to get 501c3. So they operate it, everything is done, it's just them. So it's hard to create succession planning if you don't begin to bring people into the fold. And some people have nonprofits, but when they have a board meeting, the other people still don't know how much money is in a bank account. And the other board members still don't see the financial statements. So as a board member, they don't even know how much money is in the account. Yeah, so it starts with bringing to the fold. So if I leave one day, we know we have $75,000 in the account. We know that we have a grant that we're in the fold. So it starts with that. It starts with delegation of tasks because the treasurer should know what's in the bank account. They should have access to it. They should have access to the financial statements. The secretary should have everybody's contact information. They should be sending out emails. They should be the ones signing a lot of the documents. The president is supposed to have relationships externally with all the other stakeholders. And then as you cycle through, those are the duties. But a lot of times in our smaller nonprofits, the person who founded it is the one that's doing all that. So the treasurer don't have access to the finances. The secretary don't sign documents, so they don't know where anything is, where the emails and the Google Drives are, and all that. So if that one person goes away, the nonprofit crumbles when the allocation of duties is supposed to be a team atmosphere. So I think succession planning starts with that.
Oh wow, I'm glad you said that because that really makes you particular about who you choose in those positions because they have to have access. And if you don't trust them to have access, they shouldn't be on your board, right?
I do tell people that like so-and-so is my treasurer, but we are not giving him access to the bank account. Probably should have said treasurer.
Right. Yeah. So that's actually interesting though. Wow. Ron, you have any more questions before I?
Yeah, I got one when you said about that you said the board was set what you get paid. Now I got QuickBooks. Everything is operated through QuickBooks. Now, when that time comes for me, do I give myself a W-2 or a 1099?
Well, as far as your in your nonprofit,
yes.
So it just depends, and that I would talk to like a tax professional. You could do either. For the longest, I did myself as a 1099. It just depends. Some organizations would do 1099 just so that the nonprofit doesn't have to pay some of those employment expenses, because a nonprofit don't have to pay certain taxes, but it does have to pay like employment taxes. Okay. Just like any employer would have to pay half of those self-employment at 7.5%. Your nonprofit would be on the hook for that if you W-2 yourself, and then you'd be on the hook for the other half when you do your personal taxes. If you 1099 yourself, then the nonprofit doesn't have to pay any of that. You just have to pay all the employment tax on your end. So I was 1099 with my nonprofit for a while because we didn't have enough revenue. I didn't want to take that much money out of the nonprofit to have to then pay the payroll processing fees that goes along with paying a W-2 and also those self-employment taxes. I was like, I'll handle that on my end. So that's why I 1099 myself, because we're still very much in the infancy of the organization.
Oh, okay. Good question. And so, what else? This is good. This is good information, seriously, because I know Ron deal with a lot of small businesses, and I hope they listening because this is great information when they start to think about how to, deal with business. So with LLCs, I know that do you offer the services that they do you offer any services in this area? They have this new Transparency Act now.
Oh, if you wasn't gonna bring it up, I was gonna bring it up. Awesome. So every business owner listening, if you have a registered entity with your state, a for-profit entity, LLC, corporation, LLP, overview Corporate Transparency Act legislation that got passed a couple years ago, requiring everyone who has a registered business to disclose ownership details to the federal government. This is a requirement. So anyone who forms an LLC after January 1st, 2024, has 90 days to submit what's called a BOI form, Beneficial Ownership Information Form, to FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. They are a division within the United States Treasury. They're a sister organization to the IRS. The reason that they're doing this is because of the uprise in financial crimes committed in this country, trafficking, money laundering, scam companies. So to combat that, they're making everybody disclose this, the ownership information to them. You have to submit that form to them within 90 days of forming your LLC. For those of us who have LLCs that was formed prior to January 1st, 2024, you have until January 1st, 2025 to submit that form. The good thing, what scares me is that a lot of people don't know about this. I feel like maybe the government can do a little bit more to let everybody know, because you can be subject to penalties and fines each day after the due date. The good news about it is that that form is relatively easy to complete, to fill out. So feel free to reach out. I can send you the link if you'd like to do it yourself, or we can assist you in doing it. But that is something that we like to tell people about, educate people about, and those who would like the assistance, we can do that as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I just posted it on all the medias that we're on, because that's something that a friend of Martha's and I talked to that brought us to that, and I was really bewildered on how the government could just slip this by us without us letting know about it. And so I read up on it, and it turned around and said it was a $500 fine for each day you don't do it. Now I read it and they changed it. It said up to $500. Like they set wherever you lied at. That's what I'm saying. That where you lied at is where they're gonna get you at. But it's up to. And then there's another fine of $10,000. I haven't figured that one out yet.
From what I understand is that daily penalty, they can charge that for up to the $10,000 amount. The $10,000 amount is the max.
And then if you don't pay, you go to jail.
Yeah. I would like to see them enforce that, because there's a lot of people with LLCs.
I know.
Like, that information is not exactly just out there like that. Now, whenever you go to your state to form your new business, the states are now kind of saying, hey, you need to do this. But there's a lot of people with LLCs that haven't even heard of this before. So it's something that you definitely want to get done. Now, there are some exemptions. There's like 21 exemptions that you don't have to do it. One is the inactive entity exemption. So, if you have an LLC, but it hasn't been doing anything for the last 3 years, under $1,000 in revenue and things like that, you could be exempt from it. But what some people are advising people is that if you have LLCs just lingering around and you're not doing anything with it, and you know that you're probably not going to do anything, you can probably go ahead and dissolve them, because at some point they will probably get a list of active EINs and start sending letters saying, hey, we haven't received your BOI yet and stuff like that. And then you'll have to respond saying, we don't really do anything. This is an inactive entity, but to even prevent that, just go ahead and dissolve. But yeah.
And what would be the proper way to dissolve it?
Okay, so
an LLC.
There's voluntary dissolution and involuntary. So if you stop paying your annual report fees to your state, they'll shut it down. They'll involuntarily dissolve it. If you would like to dissolve it, quote unquote, the right way, it's just a form that you're going to submit to the Secretary of State. A lot of them do have dissolution fees, so you have to pay to shut it down. They can vary anywhere from like $10 in some states to $50, $100 in other states, but it's just a form you send to the state. Some states make the process a little bit more complex than others, but they'll shut it down. So that shuts the business down. I don't know a person yet that's gone through the process of deactivating an EIN. we haven't even heard about that portion yet. But to do that is a letter you send to the IRS notifying them that you've dissolved the business in the state. Please deactivate the EIN, and they'll do so there as well.
Is that a service that you also provide?
That's just sending a letter to the IRS. So that's something that we can do.
And so if someone comes to you new with looking for an LLC, do you package it where you automatically do the BOI?
I started.
I knew it. I knew you
that way. That's right.
Knew you had it together. No. I'm super proud. No. Ron, you have any more questions?
Oh no, yeah, I got
Anybody
one.
have any?
Well, that was that. I don't think a person gonna come. Oh no, I have one. Is when I first did my nonprofit, I submitted everything to the state of Texas, tax exempt, everything like I was supposed to do properly. And they turned around and told me that I have not paid my franchise tax or anything. And I said, well, I'm exempt. And they said they didn't know. I even had an email stating it was done. Somebody dropped it on their end. So now I had to fill out this form and it said it'll take up to 7 weeks. Well, 7 weeks is over with in the middle of January. I still have not heard back from the state. I know I need to follow up. But my question is, people who do a nonprofit, should they automatically, or they shouldn't automatically assume that it's going to be tax exempt. You have to go through the right paperwork depending on what state that you're in.
Right. There's some things that's going to be state specific. So yeah, in the state of Texas, and you want to make sure, but also too that that franchise tax form that you have to do with the Texas Comptroller's Office. You do have to fill that out every year, even though you're a tax exempt nonprofit. That just means you're not going to owe anything, but you still have to submit that form to them. In Texas, I believe it's by May 15th, either April 15th or May 15th.
I think
you still have to submit it to them, and then you go select the no taxes due option, because I've seen them deactivate several nonprofits in the state of Texas for not submitting that report. So every entity has to submit it, even though you won't have to pay anything.
Okay.
So once you go past the due date, they'll send you a few letters letting you know that, hey, this hasn't been done. But then usually like after 6 months or so, they'll deactivate it, and you have to go through the process of reactivating the nonprofit.
Oh wow, that's good to know.
And that's exactly what I did. I had to go through the process of reactivating and everything again. So I'm in good standings now because I checked on the website the other day and my nonprofit pops up, so I'm good.
Right.
Wow.
Texas is different.
Yeah.
Texas, California, there's a few states that they play by their own set of rules.
Do you have any questions for us? Corey?
Always just thank you guys for having me. I love this. Thank you guys for letting me share my story, talk about what it is that I do. I love what you guys are doing and the information that you guys are giving to the listeners. So thank you for providing this platform.
So tell the listeners, how can they reach out to you if they need you?
Sure. So you can go to the website, which is jackinAssociatesLLC.com. So it's Jack, the letter N, AssociatesLLC.com. You can find a lot of good information about the services we offer, but you can also book a time to speak via phone call or Zoom meeting. You can also follow us on Facebook at Jack and Associates LLC website, or you can give us a call, which if you can share my phone number with them, 337-278-6020.
You know what I do now? I share the calendar.
Calendar. Yeah, that's the easiest thing. The calendar invite is the easiest thing.
That way they can book a meeting when they're serious about reaching out to you versus just calling.
Yeah.
So I just send out the calendar link.
See, look at you. Look at you. Martha's always on the ball. She's always there.
So I'll definitely give Ron your information, and I know he's probably gonna reach out. I'm sure.
Probably.
I'm sure other.
Probably.
I know.
I am.
He's gonna reach out.
So.
He's gonna reach out to you. So I'll definitely give him your information, and I thank you for coming on. You are really an inspiration. I love to see our people do well. And when they do well, I like to show them off. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, you
Right.
need to call this person.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
That's me. I can't help it. I'd like to share
Right.
information, just like I like to share Christ.
There you go.
But it's the same thing. I love that. I love it. I'm passionate about it, and I'm glad you shared your story because I didn't even know. I never know what questions I'm gonna ask until I'm talking to you. As a
Right.
life coach, it just pops up,
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad that you know your stuff. You know what you're doing. I like it because you showed up and you showed out. And so we really thank you so much for allowing us to interview you, actually. It's a privilege for me, and I'm sure Ron as well. So I guess I know we on an hour. So guess I'll definitely make sure you get the video.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got it. I'll get it edited and then get it on Facebook. No, not Facebook. Oh, Facebook mad at me. Once again, I'm banned from Facebook. I don't know what I'm doing for Facebook to ban me all the time. But I got other platforms that I'm using. It's on YouTube right now. So the stream will be live as soon as this is over with. All I do is hit a couple buttons and it'll be there to look at.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then I'll send it to you, and then you'll have it.
Gotcha.
Great interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. You guys have a good rest of your day.
All right, you too.
You too.
All right, thank you. Goodbye. Martha, don't go away yet.
Oh, okay.
You still there?
I'm glad you said so.
I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream on YouTube so it can be taken care of. Let me end the stream on that right there. All right. Let me see. I don't want nobody. Let me go ahead and get this all together.